The air in the marketplace was thick with dust and heat. Wooden stalls and cloth canopies stretched across the narrow street, casting uneven shadows over piles of strange fruits, glowing minerals, and cages full of creatures from 100 worlds. The smell of roasted meat mixed with the sharp sting of alien spices. Traders shouted, buyers haggled, and the crowd pushed and shoved like waves in a restless sea. But in the center of the chaos stood a platform, a stage for the slave auctions. Today's crowd was larger than usual. Whispers moved through them like a rising wind. Something special was being sold. Something no one had ever seen before. A tall alien auctioneer, his skin pale and leathery, raised his four-fingered hands to silence the crowd. Ladies, gentlemen, and all you strange in-betweens, he called in a booming voice, prepare your credits. Today we sell the strongest beast this market has ever known. A heavy wooden cage was rolled onto the platform. The iron bars bent slightly outward, as if whatever was inside had already tried to break them. Chains rattled. The auctioneer slapped the side of the cage with a grin. Bring her out. The crowd leaned forward. Then, with a sharp creak, the door swung open. She stepped into the sunlight. Gasps filled the air. She was huge, nearly 7 feet tall, with skin the color of dark violet metal that shimmered under the sun. Muscles rippled under her smooth skin, but there was nothing brutish about her. She moved like a predator, calm but ready to strike. Her hair, long and deep blue, framed a face that was both beautiful and dangerous. Ropes crisscrossed her body, but they looked fragile against her strength. Her eyes burned with a golden glow, and when she looked at the crowd, it was not with fear. It was with defiance. The auctioneer laughed. This, he said, slapping the rope binding her arm, is a Karyn warrior. Taken alive after she destroyed an entire hunting crew. Too big to breed, too strong to work, too dangerous to keep. He let his words hang in the air before delivering the final blow. We will sell her for meat. Laughter erupted in the crowd. Traders shouted jokes. But some stayed quiet, staring at her with both fear and desire. She stood still, chest rising and falling slowly, as if every breath was a warning. In the back of the crowd, a lone man watched without moving. He was human, shorter than most here, wearing a worn brown coat and a simple pack slung over one shoulder. His name was Daniel. He had traveled through many markets before, but never had he seen anything like this. Daniel noticed the way she kept scanning the crowd, as if measuring every person, every possible escape route. Her gaze wasn't desperate. It was calculating. This was no broken slave. This was a fighter waiting for her chance. The auctioneer started the bidding. 500 credits, he shouted. A fine price for the finest meat in the galaxy. A butcher near the front raised his hand. 500. 600, shouted another. The bids came slowly. No one wanted the trouble of owning her alive. They all knew the risk, one mistake and she could tear a person in half. The auctioneer's voice grew impatient. Come now, she's worth every credit. 700. Silence. The butcher smirked, already imagining her cut into pieces for his stall. I'll take her for 500, he said. No one else here's foolish enough. The auctioneer began to lower his hammer. Sold. I'll take her. The voice was calm, steady, and cut through the noise like a blade. Heads turned. Daniel stepped forward. His eyes never left hers. The auctioneer blinked. A human? Buying her? He laughed, a sharp and mocking sound. You've got more courage than brains, boy. I'll pay full, Daniel said, tossing a credit chip onto the platform. It clattered against the wood. The crowd murmured. The auctioneer grinned wide. Well then, she's yours. Don't say I didn't warn you. 2 guards moved to push her forward, but she didn't budge. Her eyes were locked on Daniel now, studying him the way a hunter studies prey, or an ally. Daniel stepped closer, lowering his voice just enough for her to hear. You're coming with me. Her lips curved in the faintest hint of a smile, not of gratitude, but of curiosity. The crowd parted as they walked down the platform, the huge alien woman towering beside the lone human. The butcher spat on the ground, muttering curses, but no one dared stop them. The marketplace noise swelled behind them. Somewhere in the distance, a trader whispered that humans not going to survive the night. Daniel didn't look back. He could feel the weight of her presence beside him, the quiet strength that seemed ready to explode. He didn't know yet if she would thank him or kill him. But something told him this was only the beginning, and whatever came next, it would change everything. The crowd was still buzzing from the shock. A human had just bought the most dangerous being the market had seen in years. Whispers moved like fire through dry grass. "Is he mad?" someone muttered. "He won't last an hour," another replied. The butcher, red-faced and furious, clenched his fists. His prize had slipped away in the last second, and the insult burned deeper than the loss of credits. Daniel didn't care. He stepped forward to claim what he had bought, his boots crunching on the dusty ground. The alien woman, the Karyn warrior, stood like a statue, her golden eyes tracking every movement. The two guards at her sides tried to shove her toward Daniel, but their hands barely moved her. She turned her head slowly to look at them, and they instantly stepped back. Her attention returned to Daniel. "You own me now," she said, her voice low, the words thick with an accent from a world he had never heard of. Daniel didn't flinch. "No," he said. "I'm getting you out." That made her pause. She tilted her head slightly, studying him. No one had said those words to her in a long time, maybe ever. The auctioneer clapped his hands. "Transaction complete," he shouted, pretending nothing unusual had happened. But his eyes flicked toward the butcher, a silent message passing between them. Daniel didn't need to guess what it meant. Trouble was coming. The marketplace seemed louder now. Every voice sounded like it was talking about them. Daniel kept walking, and she followed, her long strides matching his without effort. Even in ropes and bindings, she moved with a quiet power that made people step out of their way. They were almost to the market gates when Daniel caught a flicker of movement in his peripheral vision. A group of rough-looking men had broken away from the crowd and were moving toward them, 3 in front, 2 behind. The butcher's friends, no doubt. The Karyn warrior noticed too. Her lips curled into something that was not quite a smile. "You're about to be attacked," she said casually. Daniel didn't slow down. "I know." One of the men stepped in front of them, blocking the path. "Not so fast, human," he said, grinning with yellowed teeth. "You bought something you can't keep." Daniel looked at him for a long moment. "Move." The man laughed, but it was cut short when the Karyn warrior shifted her weight forward. Even bound, the movement was enough to make the man take a step back. Another voice came from behind. "We'll make it easy for you. Walk away and leave her here." Daniel sighed. "Bad deal. I just paid for her." The man in front sneered. "You won't live to enjoy it." Before Daniel could respond, the Karyn warrior moved. It was fast, too fast for her size. She stepped forward, rope straining, and the man blocking the path suddenly found himself lifted off the ground by his collar. She didn't squeeze. She didn't need to. Her golden eyes burned into his. "Touch him," she said, her voice a quiet growl, "and I'll break more than your pride." The men hesitated, exchanging uncertain glances. The one in her grip nodded frantically, and she dropped him like a sack of grain. Daniel gave her a quick look. "I thought you didn't believe me when I said I was getting you out." She shrugged. "You're still mine to decide about. No one else touches you until I choose." They kept walking, and this time no one stepped in their way. The butcher watched from a distance, his eyes narrowing. He wasn't done with them, not by a long shot. As they reached the edge of the market, Daniel glanced up at her. "Do you have a name?" "Karyn," she said, her tone softer now. "I'm Daniel." She didn't reply, but for the first time, her eyes didn't seem to be searching for escape routes. They were fixed on him, measuring something deeper. Behind them, the marketplace noise returned to normal. But in that normalcy was a tension, the kind that comes before a storm. Daniel knew the butcher would send more than a few thugs next time. Karyn seemed to know it too. Her smirk returned. If you're going to keep me alive, human, you better be ready for a fight. Daniel's answer was simple. I am. They walked out of the market together, the sun casting long shadows before them, two unlikely allies, bound by a deal no one else understood. Somewhere, unseen eyes were already planning their next move. And for the first time in years, Karyn felt the faint spark of something she thought she had lost. Hope. The sun was low, painting the edges of the desert with gold. Daniel led the way through the rocky path that wound between jagged cliffs. The marketplace was far behind them now, but Karyn's ears caught every distant sound. She could tell when someone's footsteps echoed in the wrong rhythm. They were being followed. Her wrist still ached from the coarse rope that bit into her skin. It was strong, meant for large beasts, but it was wearing thin. Every step she took pulled it tighter against her, and every pull weakened the fibers. Daniel glanced over his shoulder at her. "You're quiet," he said. She didn't answer at first. Her gaze stayed on the rocks ahead, her golden eyes narrowing. "3 of them," she finally said. "1 on the ridge, 2 behind us. They've been here since the gate." Daniel's grip tightened on the strap of his pack. "The butcher." "Who else?" The wind picked up, carrying with it the faint smell of rust and something sharper, plasma discharge. Karyn's jaw tightened. Whoever followed them wasn't here for conversation. They reached a narrow pass where the cliffs pressed close together. The shadows stretched long and deep here, swallowing the light. Daniel stepped carefully, scanning the high ledges. The ambush came fast. A man dropped from the rocks ahead, blocking their path. 2 more stepped out from behind, weapons drawn. The one in front, a broad alien with scarred skin, grinned. "This is where you hand her over, human. No one's watching now." Daniel's eyes flicked between them. "If I say no?" The scarred alien raised his weapon, a crackling energy blade. "Then you don't walk away." Karyn tilted her head, the ropes shifting on her shoulders. "You really think you can take me while I'm bound?" The alien laughed. "That's the point." The laughter stopped when Karyn moved. It was a sudden, explosive twist of her arms, and the thick rope snapped like dry twigs. The fibers whipped through the air, and the sound was sharp enough to make the men flinch. Her golden eyes burned. Before the one in front could swing, she closed the distance. Her hand shot out, grabbing his wrist. A sickening crack echoed through the pass as the blade clattered to the ground. She shoved him into the cliff wall so hard the rock shook. The 2 behind rushed forward, but Daniel stepped aside, letting Karyn handle them. One swung a metal rod, she caught it mid-strike, wrenched it free, and sent him sprawling with a single blow to the chest. The other tried to stab her from behind, but she spun, catching his arm and twisting until he screamed. Daniel had seen fighters before, but not like this. Every movement was precise, no wasted energy, no hesitation. Even unarmed, she was a storm. The fight lasted less than 10 seconds. The 3 attackers were on the ground, groaning or unconscious. Karyn stood over them, her chest rising and falling steadily, the broken ropes hanging from her arms like trophies. She turned to Daniel. "I told you," she said, her voice low but edged with amusement, "these bindings are nothing to me." Daniel stepped closer, eyeing the still warm ropes at her feet. "Then why didn't you break them in the market?" Her gaze held his for a moment. "Because I wanted to see what kind of human would buy me." Daniel smirked. "And?" Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "Still deciding." The wind stirred the sand around them. Karyn crouched beside the scarred alien and pulled something from his belt, a small, blinking tracker. She held it up between 2 fingers. They knew where we were the whole time. More will come. Daniel took the tracker and smashed it against the rocks. Then we moved fast. Keryn's eyes narrowed at the open desert ahead. Fast won't be enough. They want me alive. She glanced at him. You, maybe not. Daniel didn't answer. He just started walking again, and she fell into step beside him. The space between them felt different now, less like buyer and purchased slave, more like 2 predators circling the same fight. Behind them, the sun dipped lower, and the shadows grew longer. Somewhere, the butcher was already hearing that his hunters had failed. And Keryn knew the next wave wouldn't be so easy to break. She flexed her hands, the last bits of rope falling away. If they wanted a chase, she'd give them one. The desert night came fast. One moment the cliffs glowed gold, the next, the sky was deep blue with streaks of red fading on the horizon. Daniel and Keryn had put miles between themselves and the market, but the feeling of being hunted never left. Every whisper of wind, every crunch of stone underfoot seemed too sharp. Keryn's senses were sharper than his. She kept scanning the shadows, her golden eyes catching glints of movement where Daniel saw nothing. She didn't say it, but she knew more pursuers were closing in. The silence broke with the distant hum of engines. Daniel stopped and listened. The sound was faint but growing. He recognized it, hover bikes. Fast, light, perfect for chasing prey. Keryn's voice was calm, almost amused. They're coming. Daniel adjusted the strap on his pack. We can't outrun bikes. Her smirk returned. Who said anything about running? The hum grew louder until headlights appeared over the ridge, 4 bikes, riding hard. Sand sprayed behind them like smoke trails. Daniel grabbed her wrist. Move! For a second, she resisted. Then, with a shrug that said she was letting him have his way, she ran. They darted down a narrow canyon, the hoverbikes roaring after them. The riders shouted, their voices echoing off the stone walls. Energy bolts hissed through the air, striking the canyon walls in bursts of light. Keryn moved like water, leaping over boulders and sliding down loose gravel without breaking stride. Daniel was quick, but even he struggled to match her speed. They're gaining, he shouted. Good, she replied. Before he could ask what she meant, she skidded to a stop at a sharp bend in the canyon. Daniel almost slammed into her. She turned, planting her feet, and waited. The first bike came into view. Keryn moved. Her hand shot out, grabbing the rider by the chest as the bike passed. The machine spun violently, throwing sparks as it crashed into the canyon wall. The rider hit the ground hard, groaning. The second bike swerved, but she was already moving again. She leapt, landing on the front of it. Her fist shattered the control panel, and the rider bailed before it exploded in a burst of light. Daniel ducked as debris flew past him. You're insane! She grinned. You're still alive. The last 2 bikes tried to retreat, but Daniel pulled a small sphere from his pack, a flash charge. He tossed it into the path of the retreating riders. A blinding white light filled the canyon, and both bikes lost control, skidding into the sand. When the dust settled, the canyon was silent again except for the crackle of damaged engines. Keryn stepped over a fallen rider, picking up one of their weapons, a compact plasma carbine. She tossed it to Daniel. You use it, she said. He caught it, checking the charge. And you? Her smile was sharp. I don't need one. They moved on quickly, leaving the wreckage behind. The air smelled of burned metal, and the moonlight painted long shadows across the canyon floor. After a while, Daniel spoke. You could have killed them all. I could have, she agreed. But I want the butcher to know I'm coming for him. Fear spreads faster than blood. Daniel glanced at her. You talk like you've done this before. Her eyes didn't leave the path ahead. I have. They reached a rise overlooking the open desert. In the distance, faint lights marked a small settlement, their next stop. "Rest there," Daniel said. "Then we move at dawn." Karyn didn't argue, but as they walked, she kept glancing back at the dark horizon. She knew the butcher wouldn't stop. Next time, it wouldn't be just hunters. Next time, it would be a small army. And for the first time since they met, Daniel saw something in her expression he hadn't expected. Excitement. The settlement was smaller than Daniel expected, a cluster of low metal huts, flickering lights, and a single comms tower leaning at an odd angle. The smell of oil and dry sand mixed in the air. No guards. No questions. The kind of place where people didn't ask who you were or why you came. Daniel found an abandoned storage shed at the far edge of the settlement. The roof leaked, the floor creaked, but it had 4 walls and 1 door. That was enough for the night. Karyn sat in the corner, her back against the wall, knees drawn up slightly. The dim light from a cracked lantern painted shadows across her violet skin. She hadn't said much since the chase, but her eyes kept moving, scanning every crack and corner like she was listening to something he couldn't hear. "You're still expecting them," Daniel said. Her gaze flicked to him. "They're not done. They'll try again. Smarter this time." Daniel leaned his rifle against the wall and began checking the remaining ammo cells. "Then we'll be ready." Her lips curved into a faint smirk. "We? Unless you're planning to face them alone." "I could," she said, stretching her legs out, her movement slow and deliberate. "But then I'd miss watching you try to impress me." Daniel snorted. "I'm not trying to impress you." "You're failing if you are," she teased, but her tone softened at the edges. The moment hung between them, but it broke when a faint metallic click echoed outside the shed. Karyn was on her feet instantly. She pressed herself to the wall near the door, her golden eyes narrowing. Daniel killed the lantern light with a twist, plunging them into darkness. Through the thin metal wall, they could hear it, footsteps. Multiple. Slow, deliberate. Surrounding them. Daniel's voice was barely a whisper. "How many?" She closed her eyes, listening. 6, no, 7. "One's heavier, leader, maybe." The shed door creaked open a fraction. A pale beam of light sliced into the darkness. "Come out, little human," a voice called. It was smooth, almost friendly. "We only want the warrior. Hand her over, and you can go free." Karyn's smile was pure danger. She leaned close to Daniel's ear. "Say yes." Daniel blinked at her. "What?" "Say you'll give me up. Let them come in." His hesitation was brief, but he trusted her. He raised his voice. "All right. She's yours." A laugh came from outside. "Smart man." The door swung wide. 3 figures stepped in, weapons raised. Behind them, shadows moved in the moonlight, the rest of the group waiting outside. Karyn stayed still in the dark corner until the first man's eyes adjusted. The moment he saw her, she moved. She exploded forward, grabbing the nearest man's wrist and twisting until the weapon clattered to the ground. Her other hand smashed into his chest, sending him crashing into the wall. Daniel dropped the act and fired a quick burst from the plasma rifle, forcing the others back. Sparks danced across the doorway. Karyn was already on the second man, pulling him into a headlock and hurling him across the room like he weighed nothing. The third tried to run, but she caught him by the collar, yanked him back inside, and slammed the door shut with him still in her grip. Outside, the others shouted and pounded on the door. Karyn threw the last man into a stack of crates, then turned to Daniel. "You should have shot more of them." Daniel smirked. "I was enjoying the view." For a fraction of a second, she froze, not with embarrassment, but with something dangerously close to amusement. "Careful, human. I might think you like me." The pounding at the door grew louder. The metal was starting to bend. Karyn picked up a fallen rifle and tossed it to Daniel. "Time to leave." They smashed through the back wall of the shed, stepping into the cool night air. The desert stretched before them, silver under the moon. Behind them, the hunters broke into the shed, too late to catch them. Karyn glanced back, her smile sharp. They're making this fun. Daniel shook his head. Your idea of fun is going to get me killed. Not tonight, she said, and took the lead. The desert swallowed their footsteps, but Daniel knew this wasn't over. Whoever the butcher had sent tonight was only testing them. The real danger was still coming. And from the way Karyn's eyes glowed brighter in the moonlight, Daniel had the unsettling feeling she was looking forward to it. They didn't make it far before the desert lit up. First came the glare, harsh white beams sweeping across the sand from above. Then the sound, the low, teeth-rattling hum of an engine big enough to belong to a gunship. Karyn stopped in her tracks, her head tilting toward the noise. Not hunters, she said quietly. Warriors. Daniel's stomach sank. The butcher had decided to stop playing games. The gunship dropped low, kicking up a storm of dust. Searchlights pinned them in place. A deep, amplified voice thundered from above. Surrender the Karyn. The human may leave alive. Karyn smirked faintly. They think you'll take that deal. Daniel didn't hesitate. They don't know me. The gunship opened fire. Plasma bolts hammered the ground around them, spraying molten sand into the air. Daniel dove behind a jagged rock, dragging Karyn with him. The heat scorched the edge of his coat. The ship's side hatch slid open, and half a dozen armored warriors dropped into the sand. They moved like professionals, precise, coordinated, their weapons trained on the rock. Stay here, Daniel said, checking the charge on his rifle. Karyn's voice was calm but sharp. If you die, I'm going to be very disappointed. Before he could reply, she stood and stepped out from cover. The first warrior fired and missed. Karyn moved faster than their sights could track. She grabbed one by the arm, swung him into another, and disarmed a third with a clean twist that left his weapon in her hands. She fired it point blank, the blue bolt punching straight through armor. Daniel moved too, laying down cover fire, his shots forcing the others to split apart. He wasn't as fast as her, but he was precise, every bolt landed where it counted. One of the warriors managed to flank them, charging at Daniel with a blade. Before he could strike, Karyn was there, catching the attacker mid-swing. The blade stopped inches from Daniel's chest. Their eyes met for a heartbeat. You're not dying here, she said, her voice low and fierce. With one sharp motion, she drove her knee into the warrior's stomach and sent him sprawling. The gunship above roared, trying to reposition for another strike. Karyn glanced up at it, then at Daniel. I can take that thing down. Daniel almost laughed. With what? Bad language. She held up the plasma rifle she'd taken earlier, its charge meter glowing red. One shot left. Make it count. Daniel knew what she meant, he'd have to cover her while she lined up the shot. They broke from cover together. Plasma fire rained down, bolts searing the air inches from their heads. Karyn sprinted into the open, leapt onto a boulder, and aimed at the gunship's underside. Daniel took down two more warriors trying to rush her. His rifle's heat gauge blinked warning red, but he didn't stop. Karyn squeezed the trigger. The single bolt shot upward, hitting the gunship's vent port. The detonation was instant, a deep boom followed by a cascade of sparks. The ship lurched, engine sputtering, before it banked away in retreat, trailing smoke into the night. Silence fell over the desert. The surviving warrior scrambled to retreat, dragging their wounded with them. Karyn dropped from the boulder, her chest rising and falling steadily. Daniel walked toward her, his rifle hanging loose in one hand. You're insane, he said, but there was a smile on his face. She stepped closer, so close he could see the faint glow of her eyes reflecting the starlight. And you didn't run? Wasn't planning to, he replied. Her gaze lingered on him for a moment longer than necessary. Then she smirked. Good. I hate cowards. They started walking again, side by side, the desert stretching ahead like an endless battlefield. Daniel knew the butcher wouldn't stop, but after tonight, he also knew something else. Whatever Karyn had been before, she wasn't just his problem anymore. She was his ally. Maybe even his reason to fight. And that changed everything. The desert was quiet again. Too quiet. Daniel and Karyn walked in silence, their boots sinking into the cool sand under the pale light of 2 moons. The adrenaline from the fight was fading, leaving only the ache of exhaustion. Somewhere far behind them, the butcher's warriors were regrouping, licking their wounds, and making plans. Daniel knew they didn't have long. He kept scanning the horizon for any sign of shelter, but his mind was already turning over the same thought: she could leave now. With her strength, her speed, and her instincts, Karyn could vanish into the desert and never be caught. She didn't need him. And yet, she was still walking beside him. They crested a low dune and found a shallow cave hidden between 2 slabs of rock. Inside, the air was cooler. Daniel dropped his pack and leaned his rifle against the wall, finally letting himself breathe. Karyn stood at the entrance, her golden eyes fixed on the night sky. She looked calm, but there was a tightness in her shoulders, the kind that came from carrying something heavier than any chain. "You could go," Daniel said quietly. Her head tilted slightly, but she didn't turn. "Go where?" "Anywhere," he replied. "You're free now. No one's holding you." She stepped inside, her tall frame casting a long shadow. "You think freedom is just walking away?" He met her gaze. "Isn't it?" For a long moment, she didn't answer. Then she crouched down in front of him, close enough that he could see the faint lines of old scars across her arms. "On my world, when someone saves your life, you owe them a debt. But this," her eyes narrowed slightly. "This is different." Daniel's mouth twitched into a small smile. "Different how?" "You didn't save me to own me," she said. "You saved me because you couldn't watch." He shrugged. "Guess I'm bad at minding my own business." Her lips curved into a sharp, almost teasing smile. "Or maybe you're brave in ways that make no sense." "Dangerous ways." There was a flicker of something in her eyes, not just amusement, but something warmer, something she wasn't used to showing. "I'll stay," she said finally. Daniel blinked. "Just like that." Her tone was casual, but her words were anything but. "You're a human in a galaxy that underestimates humans. You think fast, you fight harder than you should, and you have the bad habit of running toward trouble. That's useful." "Useful," he repeated with a grin. "That's all I get?" She leaned closer, her voice dropping low enough that he could feel the heat of it. "For now." Before he could respond, a low rumble echoed through the night, the distant sound of engines. Karyn stood, her eyes scanning the horizon. "They're coming again," she said. Daniel grabbed his rifle and stood beside her. "You sure you want to be here when they arrive?" Her smirk was pure defiance. "If they want me, they have to go through you. And I'd like to see them try." They stepped out of the cave together, the wind carrying the first hints of dust from the approaching ships. Daniel glanced up at her. "This doesn't end here, does it?" "No," she said, her golden eyes catching the moonlight. "But when it does end, it'll be on our terms." The engines grew louder, and the desert seemed to hold its breath. Side by side, Human and Karyn stood against the coming storm, not master and slave, not rescuer and rescued, but something far more dangerous. Partners. And for the first time, Daniel felt the strange certainty that whatever was coming next, they wouldn't just survive it. They'd win.